All right, calling the meeting to order. It is 7:00 p.m. First is our flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
All right, Ms. Ballenbacher?
Okay.
Mr. Chandler is absent, correct?
You don't mind?
I'm
Is he online?
here. Can you hear me?
I got you. Thank you, Colton.
Thanks.
Mr. Choate? Here. Ms. Capitello?
Here.
Mr. Hof is absent. Mr. Oliverio?
Here.
And Ms. McCollum is absent. Mayor Perry is not here yet. Liquor is absent for now. Solicitor Corbel?
I'm here.
Engineer Keenan? Here. Director Tedesco? Here. And myself, we do have a quorum.
Great. All right, our first item is the consent agenda. So approval of the council meeting minutes from June 12th, the bill list from June 26th, and reports from the manager, police, EMS, CEDD, and FTS. So you need a motion to approve the June 26, 2025 consent agenda pending the bill list approval by the borough president, manager, and treasurer.
So moved.
Ms. Goldenbacher,
Second.
Ms. Comptello, any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, and Mr. Chandler hear us?
Yeah, he has us.
It's okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Next is public comments on agenda items. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Council has the option to respond or not at the end of the address. The solicitor is our assigned timekeeper. Please state your name and physical address for the record. All right. So first we have Daniel Hart, Hank. Dennis Hank. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on without the lights and.
Good evening, folks. Glad you're all here today.
Name and address.
My name is Dennis Shank, 14 Ingram Avenue, on the edge of your borough in the city. Don't come out too often, but I have a couple issues I'm dealing with down here. One is an issue.
Are you a resident of
Yes, I am.
Crafton? Okay. Just what I wasn't clear based on your description there. Just
On the
confirm.
other side of the street, is our city. Well, where the trucks at? Is that?
As long as you live in the borough, you can continue. Yep.
I sit there and I pull up my driveway in order to go and see that street. I cannot see it because my neighbor has a tree. It goes to the edge of that street. I said I should have just done them over here to my left that I had pictures. And I've talked to Susan about this and she said there's nothing we could do. Now, people coming off that bridge coming down on Ingram Avenue, 45 mile an hour, which is only 25 mile an hour street. So I don't want no sign up that saying that's change which street is. All those guys in those people take 55 mile an hour before they get to the woods. Okay, I'm looking for some help from the police chief and the police to sit there and come down here on our side and start regulating these cars flying down that side of the street. Now, I've asked for this before and I was told they can't. There's not such a thing as can. Come down and let's work together and get this done on this part of it. Okay, our homes, the source coming down Ingram Avenue. All the way from the top of the woods coming down, there's only 2 sources. One's on the city and the other one's on our side. And we don't have a bunch of curbs up there. So all that water is coming flying down into our driveways and our yards down there, and it looks like a river coming down, especially tonight again. And where the truck, the water all comes out of their parking lot down onto that street. And that's, I could have put a boat there tonight. That's how deep that water was coming out of there on that point. That. There's a few things I need for you folks to sit there and address. It's definitely the speed. And that tree, because I look down, I cannot see. I can't see them come flying up there. I can see them flying down the opposite way on the right hand side, but I can't see them come flying off that bridge.
Okay.
If you folks get out now, that's real appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I had questions, and I don't know if the mayor did too, because he was addressing the police. On Ingram Avenue, you crossed from the Ryder truck station there?
Yeah, right across the gate. It's a red brick house.
Okay, and then where's the tree?
It's the first house with white brick. If you come down, once you make the right on the road or off the bridge.
Okay. Okay,
It's on the right hand side.
on the right,
Tree,
if you're coming from the bridge, it's on the right or on the left?
On the right.
On the right, okay.
Before the drive, before the paper street.
Right after the paper street.
Okay.
There's a little black car that sits there, parking lot.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Yeah. So it's the tree right next to the black car that is the issue?
Yes.
Okay.
The black car's on your thing too?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's there,
Okay.
probably, yeah.
You can't sit there, I'm running my best, I can show you a picture of saying that truck. Walking, I noticed my truck on the edge of the street. I look down.
Well, we can come down and talk to you tomorrow. Larry and I can come talk to you and look at it and see if we can, it'll be better if we just come on site and take a look at it.
Please, sir.
Yeah, we can do that. Can you get his phone number on the
Yeah,
way out? We'll
for sure.
call him tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll call you first thing in the morning.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you.
Right, and then, we're talking Duncan, right?
No, this is Ingram Avenue further down, right at the end, almost by where it meets Steuben.
Okay, I will make sure that that gets, in the last few weeks, we've asked for, heightened, because we've only got 2 officers on, but getting around the borough more to different areas that people are letting us know. And I know that one isn't on the list yet, but I will make sure that it's on the list tomorrow morning.
Yeah, anytime I see a cop coming on my street, they're ripping down to get something else. And I do see Ingram police coming out, bull cars down in front of all the cities.
Right, but yeah,
Yeah, that's what happened, come down.
right, absolutely. So, we'll add that to the list that they're circulating around.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. All right,
You want to write
yeah,
that?
Mr. Wozniak.
I said, why, that's it, so that's it, like to state the plan on voting to move the new zone code forward to Elliott County. And correct?
On the agenda.
I cannot see how this can happen, as you only had 2 days to thoroughly review the final draft. Please don't tell me that you've been following it all along, because every time you were asked, your standard response was the zoning draft is in the hands of the planning commission. Until they forward to us their recommendations that you're not really even looking at it. So, so the reality is that you have had less than 2 days to do a thorough review of a 130+ page document. Voting to push this document forward to the Allegheny County without your thorough review is both irresponsible and violates your commitment to serve the citizens of Crafton in a responsible way. It was evident at the last planning commission meeting that this fast track approval initiative has been pre-orchestrated between this council and the planning commission. So that each of you have the responsibility to be transparent and to honor the public's desire while governing this borough. I request that you do not push forth the motion to push the zoning draft to Allegheny County until it has been fully vetted by each and every one of you. And that you seek and embrace the public's input. In addition, if you do move forward to a vote, it is only responsible that such a vote should be a roll call vote with your names and your vote clearly audible, so that each citizen can take note of which council member has chosen to ignore their constituents. This vote is a strong indication of how council members respect public opinion. And it is a vital piece of information to every voting citizen in this borough, when it comes to the November election. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Sheets.
Cody Sheets, 152 Promenade. For months, Crafton's leadership has said that they're listening to residents, and in some cases that may be true. But in maybe cases, it is clearly not. When 134 residents signed a petition requesting impact studies and public workshops, we were ignored. When a resident submitted a 103-page impact analysis identifying serious concerns with the zoning draft, we were ignored. When a room full of citizens opposed the planning commission's vote to send the ordinance forward without those studies and workshops, we were ignored. No one acknowledged the petition. No one knew the process for responding to it. Our concerns were dismissed as fear breeding fear, hyperbole, disinformation, or simply us not understanding the language within the draft. But if that were true, wouldn't that prove the need for public workshops to educate and inform? Some planning commission members even claimed impact studies on zoning don't even exist, and that's categorically false. When I asked council to request those studies to be done, I was told that you're a separate body and can't make such requests. Yet on multiple occasions, the borough manager has stated on record that council requested the Linden Avenue property not be rezoned. So which is it? We've raised specific concerns like the elimination of minimum unit sizes in key areas of Crafton. This opens the door for developers to build 200 to 300 square foot micro apartments. That is not dignified housing. It's 2.5 to 3.5 times the size of a jail cell, the average size of a jail cell in the United States of America. Is this what you want for our neighbors? We're talking about 15 by 13.5 to 15 by 20 foot spaces for people to live in, bathe in, cook in, and sleep in. Consider how many square feet are in each of your homes here in Crafton. If the barrier to doing impact studies is cost, then let me ask, is it smarter to spend $15,000 now on infrastructure analysis or $500,000 later to repair what we failed to prepare for? Would $10,000 for a business impact study be better, or watching small businesses be pushed out by corporate gentrification? Would $20,000 for public safety analysis be worth it? Or would you rather risk somebody's lives because we didn't act? How much is a life in Crafton of a resident worth to you? These studies can even be developer funded, so taxpayers pay nothing, while the community gets the protection it deserves. Tonight, you're considering sending this zoning draft to Allegheny County, but you have a choice. Make the responsible one. Represent the will of your residents. Delay the vote, prepare impact studies, host public workshops. Crafton's future, livability, safety, and sustainability depend on your vote tonight. Make the right decision.
Great, Mr. Mangan.
Magnum PI, here it is.
Mangan.
I'm James Mangan, 96 Stark Street. So kind of echoing that too, I would like to say vote no tonight, just based on the fact that you need to have time to read over it, and study it, and look at it. I know the planning commission spent a lot of time looking at it, at our behest. But I would say it needs a lot more time. As another anecdote, one of the things as a member of the zoning steering commission, Greg and I fought to have sex shops removed from the COT district. That's here. And we fought for about 2 meetings about that, and Kirsten offered us reassurances saying, well, the signage would be classy. And we never discussed, in planning commission, never discussed what signage allowances would actually happen. So throughout our, tenure here, no one brought up signage, no one talked about it, no one discussed it, no one, kind of like laid out rules for it. So if you were to vote yes tonight, you'd be voting yes on who knows what, in terms of what a business could do, in terms of signage, bright lights, flashing lights, neon lights, size, things like that. None of those things lived past our discussion. And Greg and I kind of fought against that. Ultimately, Vince voted that down in an earlier planning commission meeting last year. Once again, no one listened to us, but Vince was, in fact heard, so that's that.
Linda Wozniak.
I'm Linda Wozniak, 1773 Bar Avenue. I have two items, Engineer Keenan, am I correct? You are not PE, is that correct?
Correct.
That is part of our zoning rules to have a PE sign off on some items. We don't have a PE then acting in that role. If we were to be sued over something that dealt with that, how would that come out? You guys definitely aren't looking at all the fine details, and most of the corrections that have been made have been suggested to both Jim and Mike by either Sandy, one of us, by line items. We've given you guys sheets worth of corrections, so clearly your eyes are not on the details, so I'm not confident that this should move forward this evening either. Actually, I definitely don't want it to. Secondly, agenda item 13, Crafton Performing Arts. You got the date wrong on that. You failed to put it into the Crafton newsletter. And in the ability, in our quest to correct that and have everyone notified again, because it wasn't in that. You put it in today's agenda and it says the wrong date. It should be July the 10th, Thursday, July the 10th. So if we could update that, please, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Nicole Currier.
I have one of these because they're expensive, so I'm just gonna give it to one of y'all. And you can do it. That's the same thing I do now. This is Nicole Curvin, 184 South Grandview. We're gonna try to talk fast. There are more than 2 minutes written here. Is it my phone? No.
No, you gotta hold the button on the back of it there. Can you help her, Mike? Yeah.
Has not been off.
It's been picking up. He's been picking it up.
It's up on the screen.
Thank you.
Is it on?
Okay, Nicole Curvin, 184 South Grandview. 2 days ago, I sent most of you an analysis of the current zoning code update. I hope you had the chance to review. It details a number of serious problems that are easy to rectify, but I'm here to talk about what's not in the report. It's the silent way in which systems destroy people. I've devoted my life to helping people, those who are in poverty, who struggle to take care of themselves because of what our decisions do to them. Let me just say, as someone who tries to give back, I believe your intentions are good. We all want to do what's best for Crafton. So I really don't believe that any of you would want to vote for something that might accidentally perpetuate systemic racism or discrimination, or that disenfranchises people in low-income households, people with disabilities, or renters. But I'm here to tell you that's what this current code does. When we don't add protections for small businesses and existing residents, we allow them to be displaced by gentrification. When we don't prepare for climate change, effects on stormwater and infrastructure, we expose the most vulnerable among us to harm and the borough to undue cost. We don't solve a housing crisis by giving developers any leeway to cut corners. If you want to stop people to stop being afraid of affordable housing, just hold it to the same design and livability standards as market rate housing. Have consistent green space requirements, parking that can't be waived without public oversight, and minimums for square footage and living spaces. We're lucky enough to be in this room. We have the time and the freedom to be here. And so we make decisions for the people who can't. So we have to fight for their health and their safety and their quality of life. And that's what the impact study petition was about. We live at an unprecedented time when private equity firms and foreign investors are snatching up real estate, decreasing local tax base, making it harder for people to own homes. We should do everything we can to avoid intensifying that. This is an opportunity for us to be a shining example of how to do that right. I ask you to take a stand today for the people who can't afford to be here, but those who deserve to also have decent living space and may one day have the chance to buy a home, and for longtime residents who don't want to be displaced. The zoning code itself recognizes that significant changes require impact studies. It mandates them for mining, large developments, and steep slopes. How can we apply lower standard to changes that will affect every property in Crafton? Please vote no for now and conduct an impact study. It has a cost, but it could easily save the borough a lot of money. It hurts no one to take a pause and get this right, but it hurts a lot of people if we move forward and get it wrong. If not now, when will we come together to take a stand?
Thank you, Nicole. Reese, I can't speak. Are you at the end? If you do you want to go at the end or?
No.
No, it's on there. Okay.
All right, this is not about zoning at all, so this is a bit different. It looks like on the agenda, you guys will be voting and including in the Broadhead Sewer Separation Project, the paving of Rebecca Street. I just wanted to talk about that. I really like that. If you guys weren't gonna do that, I would encourage you to do it. So right now, this alleyway is really messed up. It's really crumbling. It's like falling apart on the sides. We have businesses on one side. I know one of the auto body shops, they have sort of a parking lot a bit back down there. We have houses along Coulter Street, the street I live on. Rebecca is my alleyway from my house. Some houses have garages, so having a really bad alleyway there makes it harder for them to get to their garage. It causes more wear and tear on their cars. And I would just really like to see it paved. And if you guys are doing that, I'm really, really happy to see that. As well, I hopefully, once it's paved, maybe some more houses want to put garages or parking pads back there, which will help alleviate traffic on the main streets. I know I'll be looking to do that. So just thank you guys very much. And I'm happy Rebecca should be getting paved, but thank you.
Okay. I want to address that very quickly or with Rebecca about how it's getting paved.
Well, it'll get paved if the whole base bid is approved.
Yeah. And the reason it was an ad alternate. So because the bids came in lower than we had planned, we're able to add those ad alternates in, which allows a lot of the curbing and Rebecca Street.
And also, I want to note that somehow, I thought it was in there when we dealt with it earlier today, but somehow Crafton Boulevard got removed from that list.
It's on H.
Item H. Oh, okay, so it was added to that. Oh, okay, so the bit that.
Yeah, the bit's not on the bid.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Oliverio, could you ask Mr. Smith to read his name and address for the record for people online?
Yes,
Thank you.
Reese. Reese, it's been asked to put your name and address for the record.
I thought I didn't.
Yeah, come up to the mic, yeah. For the people online.
Started the practice in planning commission of only having them write it down, not having them speak it into the
Mhm.
record. So if we wanted to do that here, we could do that. too.
Maybe.
And that's why I was confused. Okay.
Because the planning commission, they don't require that it's read into the record. And I don't think there's any legal requirement that it's read into the record.
As long as it's on the.
On the submitted sheet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Reese Smith, 58 Coulter Street.
Thanks, Reese. Okay, Lisa, you're to the end. Yeah, okay. Laura Casey.
Hi, Laura Casey, 66 Lincoln Avenue. I just wanted to comment on the meeting the other night. Since last August, the residents of Crafton have attended meetings, workshops, had impact analysis done, and a petition to sign down the process to no avail. With a room full of people, online comments, and a signed petition objecting to the approval of the zoning, the planning commission still approved the new zone changes. Is your decision already made before we all waste our time sitting here through a meeting when you've already made your decision?
Is that it? Is that your comment?
That's my question. Is anyone going to answer?
I can certainly answer that. My decision has not been made relative to that. Now, I'm going to do my comments whenever we go through it on the agenda.
Okay, but nobody else will say whether they have made their decision or not.
It's up to them.
No, okay, all right, thank you.
I have not made my decision.
All right. Anybody online, please raise your hand. Okay. All right. Next is
We have a hand.
Oh, there is a hand? Oh, I didn't see that. Karen.
Karen, you should be live. Unmute your side.
Karen, we can't hear you. Karen?
Nope, she had it for a sec.
Should we? Karen? Looks like Mike Hof has joined the meeting.
Yep.
We can't hear Karen.
She's still muted on her side.
And we can't, if you are talking, we can't hear you, unfortunately. So if you're able to unmute, because we see you are muted, just you can chime in during any time in the agenda. All right. Okay, President's report. So the construction projects, again, reminder at every meeting. Asking for patience. There's going to be a lot of construction projects, as we know, just on Crafton Boulevard. Broadhead will be starting.
Like, you should remove for permission at top. Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Yep.
Thanks.
Karen can just raise your hand when you're available. So just Crafton Boulevard, or I'm sorry, we've got construction down on Route 60, Steuben Street. We're going to have it throughout the borough coming up, and there'll be a lot of projects. It's the summer and including through the end of the year. So just asking your patience with any traffic detours or any type of construction happening. All right, mayor's report.
All right, just a reminder on the fireworks ordinance that we spoke about last week. Just to remind everybody that the borough is in compliance with the state ordinance, that fireworks are not to be set off within 150 feet of a car, a vehicle, or a roadway. And as we mentioned last time, that does leave very, very few areas in the borough where you can set off fireworks. Anyone who is disturbed by them or sees this happening, do please call 911 so that an officer can come out and ameliorate the situation. I'd also like to mention that July 4th at 6 p.m., just before the music starts, we will be saying farewell to Chief Sumter, and we will be welcoming to our police force and swearing in our new chief, Chief Ford. And then finally, I have an update on the report that I gave last week. Sergeant Carvison has appraised me of some additional information that I didn't have last week. And that is to state that the Crafton Police Department has also filed certain charges relating to those events. And what had happened is after the SWAT team had made entry into the home, they made our officers on duty, including Sergeant Hardison, aware of several firearms that were located in the house in addition to drugs. So they did get a search warrant, which was executed that night. They recovered quite a number of pieces of evidence, including a couple of firearms, and they also found evidence to support that both residents were selling drugs. The department charged the two people with counts of endangering the welfare of children, possession with the intent to deliver a controlled substance, criminal conspiracy, and a one count of a felon to possess a firearm. And the other resident was charged with criminal conspiracy, possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance, and 2 counts of endangering the welfare of children. So I've been asked to read that into the record. Thank you.
Is this the individual that there was a warrant out for?
No, as far as we know, he has fled the state. The district attorney has issued an enlarged extradition order for the entire country.
Thank you. All right, engineers report, Mr. Keenan.
Yeah, good evening. First item on the engineer's report is the Broadhead Sewer Separation Project. The bids have closed on the project, and we did receive notice that Amarante was the lowest bidder out of 4 total bidders at $6,154,811.25. This is $100,000 less than what was budgeted for the Broadhead portion of the project, and is entirely supported by 3 grants: a $3.74 million grant from Alcoasand, $2.3 million grant from the Commonwealth, a $900,000 grant from the federal government. And the project total includes the base bid and the alternates as follows. One, the base bid of $5,582,872. Belvedere Street, including a full sidewalk and curb replacement at $97,602.50. Rebecca, the mill and pave, $41,350. Coulter Street, which is a full sidewalk and curb replacement at $268,525. Park, full sidewalk and curb replacement at $83,356. And Warren Street with full sidewalk and curb replacement at $81,130.50. With that said, I'd like to move forward to a motion to approve Amarante's base bid and all add alternate bids for the Broadhead Sewer Separation Project for a total bid price of $6,154,810.75.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Compitello, Ms. Bowenbacher? Discussion or questions? Milani, what other projects did they work on?
They installed the sanitary sewer for the new public works building.
Mhm.
That was a few months ago.
Didn't they also do one of the stairs projects?
They did another project.
They did the stairs, didn't they do the
The
stairs?
Belvedere steps. I
Yeah, they
believe.
did the Belvedere stuff.
Yeah, the railing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know where they're located?
Amarante.
Yeah.
Not off my hand, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry, no.
Okay.
Pittsburgh area.
Pittsburgh. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. This is a big boat. Obviously, this is a project that's been in on our radar for several years, I think since I've been on council, so over 4 years. And a really important one for, like we've seen today, some of the sewer system issues, plus some of the roads that are in the worst condition. So it's double work here.
Just as a reminder, this is mainly covered by grant.
Yes, yeah, and that's in there. Yep, it's in the notes here too, a couple grants.
I'll also just add, because we did include all the add alternates, those were, and this came up in comments earlier. We had wanted to do all of that, and we were very careful to try to work with the money that we had. But we had always been hoping that we could do as much of this as possible. So it's very nice to hear that that is desired, and definitely nice to hear that we're going to be able to afford to make it all happen.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Colton and Mike.
Sorry, I'm aye. Did you guys hear me?
You just can't come up with an answer.
I'm aye as well.
Okay. Okay, great. Motion passes 6-0. This is great work for all the years that we've worked on it, and this is, in the end, it'll be a very, very well done project. So. Good work.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the next item is the Perrine Street Sewer Project, which is a subcomponent to the Broadhead. I just wanted to go over just 2 small updates with this. So on the screen here, just a quick overview of the area and the proposed layout for the project. Apologize for the scale and the size, try to get it on one page for everybody, but on the left side, just an aerial of the area and the sewers that are shown using our GIS system internally here. Basically, it just shows, like, you can follow the red and the orange lines there. It's the combined sewer in the area servicing those homes, and how it conveys to Perrine Street then over to Clearview, and then out of the area. On its way to Alcasam. And on the right there is the proposed layout for the project and the locations of the proposed inlets that are to be collecting the runoff from the streets there and taking the water out of the combined sewer and conveying it down to the adjacent property and into a natural drainage way where it will be collected by the receiving stream at the bottom there. Again, just want to give a brief update and overview of the area and proposed layout for the project, but the other small part of the update is that we've contacted the city of Pittsburgh and let them know we'd like to move forward with a resolution for taking. And got that process going, and we're expecting hopefully a 1 to 2 month process for this.
And we did ask the solicitor to move forward with creating an ordinance. Yep.
Those were the action items we had. And Ms. Morris, you can come up, you're kind of our, allow it. And also if you could explain if anything went on today too, with all the rain.
Sandy Morris, yeah. I moved out today and it didn't look like it got too bad.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing. One question on your thing here, there's a sewer on Bar. Which doesn't show up there. Like Tom goes out to the front.
Sanitary sewer from straight down the middle of Bar Avenue.
A combined sewer.
Sanitary.
A sanitary?
Yeah.
Oh, because it was part of the separation, that might not capture the separate, so that might not have the separation project in there.
This is our latest GIS, so.
Okay.
Yeah, like that, even the whole end of the left side of Bar doesn't have a red line on either Bar or Alley A. I think they go to the front.
Right, yeah. Your borough, you know, because you guys collapsed manhole right into the bar, so.
Well, there is a line on Bar, that orange line is a sewer line.
Oh, that orange.
Yeah, there is an orange,
Red lines, right?
it's not, it's orange, red and blue.
It's
Some are orange, some are red on the
Yeah.
map. That's what I was saying to look.
It's hard to
at the words.
see.
Yeah.
Hard in there.
I think orange might be a separate, those are the ones that have already been separated possibly, I'm not sure.
The red ones I think were marked out for like, to be looked into for repair.
Oh,
That's
okay,
why.
okay, that's why they're marked.
Yeah.
But there is a line on Bar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that, sorry.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the scale and.
No, that's okay, I just knew the guy next door, his goes out the front, ours all go out the back. So, but yeah, I mean, that's a sizable amount of water all going into that one drain. And that's causing our problems of either sewer gases in people's basements or sewer backing up, that kind of stuff, so. I think that's all I got.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
I think for this, again, the action items where we have to contact the city too, because of where the property's located. But we'll keep it on the agenda as we go through the process.
Ask the city or?
Yeah, Teresa Gale Smith got back to me. I had emailed her a month ago. She didn't even respond to that email, but then I pinged her again and she responded the next day. So I think she was trying to get it on the next agenda for them to approve it. So they have to approve a resolution. And then once they approve us doing an eminent domain process in the city, then we can start that process. And then we have to pass a resolution to start that process. And then we go through that process. So we're just waiting she had to send it to legal to make sure that there was no issues with the resolution that we had sent them. And then when I haven't heard back from that team, I'm guessing in a week or two I will, and then they'll put it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm just glad we're not giving up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, that was the update for Perrine. If no other questions, move on to the next item. Which is the Ewing Road. Getting the update here is that we are intending on planning a meeting with the affected residents along Ewing Road, get their feedback and their thoughts on the solutions and possible options for this. A date has not been set yet, but we are looking and aiming for the mid to late July timeframe to make this happen. I also attended a grant presentation today down at the Conservation District for the dirt gravel low volume grant that they have available to see how this may could be part or beneficial and help out in some way. A lot of information was given, and I talked with one of the representatives there, and they're going to come out here on July 22nd to look at the site and assess and give us their opinion on whether or not the grant will be helpful or not.
Where's the grant from?
It's with the County Conservation District.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be great. Thank you.
Set update.
Wow.
Moving on to the C20 sewer separation project that is currently ongoing. Right now it's along South Linden Avenue and Steuben Street. PA American Water has been doing their water line relocations as needed. Mill and pave we were told that mill and pave was scheduled for June 25th and 26th of this week. Fortunately, that has been delayed a day for an unknown reason, but the milling has been completed down there. And if the weather holds out tomorrow, paving will commence. The end of paving is to include Duncan Street, Duncan Steuben intersection, and Steuben Street up to the Crafton Park parking lot. Wanted to note that the night work is expected to occur in July from Steuben Street, from Linden intersection up to West Crafton Boulevard. And the expected completion date is still holding at November 12th this year. You know, they have had some delays with utilities and weather. It's still too early to tell if this is going to change or not. That's the update for that. Moving on is the Public Works Building project, and construction has begun, starting with the installation of the building insulation, coordination with Public Works and the contractors on materials and color choices is ongoing. Want to get their feedback on everything. Upcoming site work also involving the Public Works with trenching for the site utilities is also planned. And we did have a pre-construction meeting this morning with all the awarded contractors to make sure everybody was on the same page with everything. And I'm also finalizing the grant disbursement request with the ACED. That said, I'll move on to the Steuben Linden intersection improvements. The update is that the contractor is currently in the process of getting the new service inspected and hooked up with Duquesne Light. Once that's complete, the remaining pole and the concrete foundations that remain will be removed. And they are also waiting for the subcontractor to install the new street signs to be put up. Fast arms. That said, moving on to Linwood Noble Parks. Again, the update here is that they're still currently in the design stage, and it's been on here for a while, but I haven't been able to work on this as much as intended, making some other options or some other things or priorities over this, but the goal here is to have some preliminary concept plans done and ready for the next infrastructure meeting to be held on July 14th, showing good, better, and best options. That said, moving on to the 2025 road paving and brick plan. Brick road assessment planning has begun, and site visits are planned to begin in July for the borough streets. It is an ongoing process that will take several months. I did begin putting together all the assessment templates that will be used out in the field to document all the defects that are found on the streets, and will be used towards the overall plan, which still needs some content to make it complete and approved internally to be able to move forward. But nonetheless, looking forward to moving strong on this in July next month. Next is the road paving to be part of the Broadhead Sewer Separation Project. Again, these include Belvedere, Broadhead, Coulter, North Emily, Park, Warren, Cornell, North Linwood will get brick trench repair, and a portion of Crafton Boulevard and the backbone between Broadhead and the trail entrance is also included. Next item is Rush Alley. This is pertaining to a manhole behind 98 Hall Avenue. The item here is that to replace the existing solid manhole with a slotted one to help with the drainage that is a problem during storms. I've been contacting Felino and the project manager. Unfortunately, his automatic response is that he is out of the country until July 1st. So I don't, unfortunately, don't have an update on when that will be going in at this time. But once he gets back, we'll be on him to give us an update. Next and last item is the permit applications. Only received one newly received permit application for street utility work. And that includes the sidewalk construction and repair being done by PA American Water at 50 West Crafton Avenue with a impacted repair of 8 feet by 5 feet. I was gonna add another item on here that I did not place notice was the Crafton Boulevard School storm tank inspection. That's been mentioned before. No mention that this would take place as soon as the school year was done, but unfortunately did not get around to it. I did talk with Holly, the school secretary, recently about some of the cars that are in the parking lot, because that wouldn't be need fully access to get to two of the manholes. And apparently there are 2 summer camps that are going on right now. And some of the staff use that parking lot. She said those will be going on until July 16th. So the new date to go in is July 17th to do the inspection. With that said, that concludes my engineer's report.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Keenan. Manager's report, Mr. Price.
Thank you. The first update, we did have a public outreach session on the 23rd at 6 o'clock. That went well. Was lightly attended, so we're going to try to do a better job of getting the word out. I think we did a great job of getting the survey word out, but didn't do a great job of getting the public outreach word out. So we're going to try to do a better job of that. The poster should have had this date on it as well, and they didn't. So that's on me. The permit application, I'm sorry, started to read the wrong place here. And then also, if you have not already done a survey, there is a survey online for the Crafton Trails project. So please go to the craftonborough.com trails page and take the survey if you already haven't. We're going to keep that open until July 15th. I think we already have somewhere in 180 responses, so that's great. And then next on my agenda is the Grow Grant resolution for C20. So we originally had C20 as 2 separate projects. When we had already received money for one of the 2, the separation project, but now that we moved another separation project in with it, we're able to apply for another round of grants for the C20 project, even though it's ongoing. And it sounds good, like we're going to be able to get some additional money from this based on conversations that we've had with Alcosan. So with that, I'd like to get a motion to approve resolution 2025-10, acknowledging that Crafton is seeking grant funding for the Richmond Street portion of the separation project. That's additional work as part of the C20 project.
Ms. Mollenbacher.
Second.
Ms. Comptello. From what I remember, Richmond Street was the move from Oregon and Montana and all those other streets. We moved it to Richmond to not have to put in the little curb bump outs and all those things. Correct.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
He's not, okay. All right, motion passes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda here is a very generous offer from Nancy Corbel, who is going through the Pennsylvania Master Naturalist Project right now. She is researching, she would like to conduct her project with the borough. We will not, will not be getting paid for this. This is a volunteer project. And she is going to research and write interpretive signs for Crafton trails if we approve this. The borough would need to raise funds to actually put the signs up if we approve them, and we don't have to do it if we approve this project, but I think it would be a nice thing to do if we can. So I'd like a motion to approve Nancy Corbel working with the borough to produce interpretive signage for Crafton's trail to include information about Crafton's geography, watershed, plants, wildlife, and history.
So moved.
Mr. Chandler, Ms. Bollenbacher. Questions or comments? So for me, the last name is spelled differently than our solicitor.
No relation.
Okay, and that's number one. Number two, I probably want to suggest that we put something in here where, there's not going to be an expense to the borough. unless grant funding is obtained for the purchase of those things. But it's up to the rest of council.
I think that's fair.
That makes sense.
So if that is the case, we have to amend the motion.
Yeah, the motioner and the second have to agree.
I agree.
The second. Okay, so basically the motion is to approve Nancy Corbel working with Borough to produce interpretive signage for Crafton's trails to include information about Crafton's geography, watershed, plants, wildlife, and history at no cost to the borough.
I would suggest that you make it not no cost, but at a if you want it to be funded partially by grant, because almost no grants require no match.
Okay.
So if you say no cost, even if we got a 80% match, it would be difficult for us to do it without, you know what I mean, without. So I just would want to suggest that.
If we said,
Wouldn't we then-
would we have to put a monetary value on it now?
You can,
No,
you could do that later. I think
Couldn't we
it's
then
fine
have
the
a
way it is.
discussion
And
later?
If the grant becomes available, you can agree to pay at that point by another motion.
Okay.
Okay, can we say like a contingent on obtaining a grant?
I just leave it as is.
As
and
it
if it comes down the pike, then we can.
We change it at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion or questions?
Do we have to unamend the amended?
Leave it as it was amended.
Okay,
And then if
Okay.
there's grant monies available, we can change it.
Okay.
Yep.
Hearing none, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The next are just two notes. Land Bank is going to be coming again for a presentation on July 24th. If the borough wants to participate in the Land Bank, we will have to be ready to pass a resolution shortly thereafter so that we can join in October. Which is a great blight mitigation tool for those houses that we don't want to tear down, but we'd rather see put back into productive use. So that will be happening at July 24th meeting. And I also have on here the Safe Streets for All, an update that we actually are not applying for this grant now. I was not able to get responses from Carnegie in time to process this, so.
And Ingram,
Ingram did not want to join. Rosslyn Farms was on board, and Carnegie came in late and told me that they wanted to join, but at that point it was too late, so. And that's it for my updates.
great. Community and Economic Development. Mr. Tedesco.
Congratulations, you're now the proud caretakers of a zoning consideration process. We'll talk about that last, so everybody can have a full and open discussion on the topic. So I'll tackle the first three items on the list, starting with the Business Development Subcommittee update. Also on July 24th, we will hold a mixer at Fig Tree, inviting all business owners within Crafton, as well as all commercial landlords within Crafton to get together and talk. We'll give out some shop local window clings for those that want them, that scans to our business directory. We will hand out some kind of the easy sheet to start a business in Crafton or to get a permit to improve your business, that sort of thing. So an easy sheet to navigate all of our rules and regs. And hopefully that helps stimulate some conversation and just getting to know the landlords that have vacant space and whether or not they want to fill that space with businesses. It will be great conversations as well. So we're looking forward to that. That's on July 24th. As we know, it is a council meeting. I believe that mixer starts right around, I want to say 5. I can't specifically recall. So I'll be there, but I'll certainly be coming to council thereafter. And certainly council is welcome to swing by and have a cup of coffee and chat with folks. So.
May I ask?
Yes.
Ask a question about that. When we speak about business owners, are we talking about business owners who have brick and mortar stores? Or are we including business owners who are operating and paying business owner taxes in the borough that may be operating virtual businesses, businesses from their homes, digital businesses?
It's a great question. It's primarily brick and mortar. There are 100 businesses on the nose on our business directory. And I'd have to look, but it's definitely primarily brick and mortar locations that show up on a map.
All right, thank you.
New website. Our IT guy is tinkering with server settings alongside the Munibit platform provider for our new website. Just a couple last kinks to work out, and then we'll pull down the old site, and then it will just be the new site. And we're very close. We're very close to scratching this off of the agenda and running with the new website. So that's close.
It's July 1st, right?
Yeah, we're aiming for July 1st. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then 82 Belvedere. I got some bids for clearing out the junk, including pulling the carpets, pulling the drop ceilings, what I call demolition of the kitchen, pulling down the old cruddy cabinets, that sort of thing. So making the kitchen essentially a box, pulling out the carpets, clearing out the junk, doing those sorts of things, getting the interior of the home construction ready. The bids came out extraordinarily well. The low bidder is Service Master at roughly $8,000, and they're gonna. I mean, it's really screaming deal. The high bidder was about $16,000, and should be quick, kind of a one-day job, and they'll leave it nice and clean and tidy. They'll have to pull up a big roll-up dumpster to throw everything away. So we'll get that scheduled as soon as possible. On the topic of doing the rest of the improvements on the home, myself, Jim, and Steve had a great conversation this morning. We're kicking around the potential of some sort of service agreement with a construction manager. Now, there's clearly budget constraints here, but a construction manager will very much be the easy button. And we need to cost out, because obviously we want to sell the house for as much as we put into it or greater than that. And that's kind of the limitations of the budget on this. So more to come on that topic. And finally, yes, so Planning Commission last Tuesday, 2 days ago, voted to recommend to Borough Council approval of the zoning code. That does not mean the process is over by any stretch. Let me find my notes on this. And Steve, jump in if I screw this up, but I'll briefly summarize the process that follows with council. There is indeed a 45-day review with the county. So this is a state requirement. And so I'm speaking for myself. You guys will talk about this because there is a motion on the agenda. I do not see any harm in submitting it to the county for review. They do not have veto authority. They will provide recommendations for improvements, be them just good best practices, zoning recommendations, whether or not there's conformance with the county's comprehensive plan recommendations, and whether there's any contradictions with state or federal rules, those sorts of recommendations. So it's just good information to have. We can listen to it. We don't have to listen to it. And for practical purposes, it just checks a box. So it is, in my mind, very harmless to submit to the county. It doesn't mean you're going to approve the code at all. It does not obligate you to approve the code. It just gets that step out of the way. So it just makes sense to do it just for efficiency's sake. So that is a mandatory step, 45 days. There are 2 public hearings required. After the second public hearing before council, that's when you can consider adoption of the code. There are newspaper requirements leading up to both of those public hearings, so public notice requirements.
Is there 2 or just 1? Last there was only 1. Is it 2?
I think there's 2 different ads, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And yeah. And that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, the minimum required steps to get council to a place where you can vote if you want to vote. And all of that will, at a minimum, if we're moving at, maximum efficiency, it's a couple of months, it's gonna take a couple of months. And council has the discretion to move as fast or as slow on this as you want to do. And I know there's a lot of questions, so maybe Jim, am I missing anything significant before?
I'll make one note if I could, that to the extent that council would make a material change to the ordinance following county review or following further council review, either before the county answers or after, it would need to be resubmitted to the county for another 45-day review period. So there's really no, as Mike said, the harm, there is no harm in sending it because it could guide council in its review of the underlying ordinance, its further review of that document. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that if there were changes that were made after the county's review, it has to go back for the county to review it again. So 2 review periods, that's 3 months.
Okay, thank you. Sure, I'll stop there.
Do you call for the motion?
Oh, I'll read the motion. A motion to approve sending the zoning ordinance to Allegheny County Economic Development for their review.
Second.
Ms. Goldenbacher,
Second,
Ms. Contello. So discussion?
can we address the different questions that came up at the beginning of the meeting, the different comments?
Yeah, one, I can address one first, and that is with an engineer. We do have a borough engineer. We have a borough engineer as an employee, and we also have gateway engineers. So they would approve any drawings, just like they approve any drawings that we have now.
They are being engineers, correct?
And they are officially our engineers as appointed by the council.
There was a comment about the zoning impact study, which can be developer funded. Do you think you could explain a bit the difference between what an impact study is and when it is used and why it is paid by a developer?
Yeah, when they're paid by a developer, and it is required in our zoning code that they do impact studies on certain projects. They're done on specific projects because you know what is actually happening. There are not impact studies done on broad zoning updates. And there were claims made at the planning commission on Tuesday that other municipalities have done these. I am not aware of any. I've been doing that. I've been working with zoning codes for over 15 years in the state of Pennsylvania, and I've never heard of anybody doing an impact study on a zoning code update. Individual developers do them because they know how much how many units they're building, what businesses they're bringing in and whatnot. So they're done typically like that, but not typically done. In fact, I don't know of any that are done unless it's a major city, but even then I'm not sure if they're done for zoning code updates.
I also, in my experience and in doing research, am not aware of anything like that, but the developer funded, we did want to clarify the difference. We can absolutely and would absolutely still be requiring impact studies. As the manager said, those are in our zoning code already. If a development were to happen, that would then be required and the borough would not have to pay for it out of taxpayer funds. We would request the group, the individual, the entity, the developer, whoever it may be, to put that cost. There was also some comments about the sex shops discussion that was discussed in the steering committee. It was actually a wider discussion than that, and I'll start, and I may lean a bit on the solicitor here. We have limitations when we do a zoning update. It is a regulatory document that limits what can be done on private property. There are a slew of laws that we have to follow in doing that. There's only so far that we can go in regulating what people can do in private spaces on private property. One of those discussions came up with that use and other uses to talk about the fact that if we ban outright a use that is allowed constitutionally, that puts us into legal trouble. And we have many avenues, including signage, and we had a much wider discussion than that too. We talked about a number of different restrictions, guidelines, limitations on frontage, on visibility, on signage, on placement, on hours of operation, on permitting. That were tools that we are allowed to use to regulate uses that people tend to not want in the community. I'm not a lawyer, so it was just a perspective that I brought to the conversation, but that was a valuable conversation to have. And one that I will say I did absolutely represent as a council member, that we, in doing this, have to be very careful to make sure that we're not doing anything that would land us in a lawsuit.
Isn't there something with the vape shop too, that they could not have neon signs and all the signage that they had in the front?
I'm not aware of it directly, but our signage, the signage recommendations did not change that much or barely at all from the previous from the zoning code that has existed for years. So I'm not sure that it has changed much at all, but I don't think their signage was not legal. And we did ask them to pull it down, but before they did that, they already failed other tests, so it wasn't an issue.
We also discussed in the steering committee, we discussed things like the placement of the building, the amount of transparency that was allowed or not allowed. Can we have design restrictions that ensure that no one can see into a building, or are there restrictions that can be placed on time of day or location within the community? Those things were all discussed, and that discussion was basically given to the consultant that was still working at that time, so they could know to try to be as restrictive as possible, but make sure that we were within the bounds of the law. That being said, again, I was a participant in the conversation, trying to raise some of those concerns to make sure that they were heard. The actual decisions about what is legal, I can't really weigh in on that. I don't know if we have any further input from anyone else.
You cannot exclude uses through zoning. If you do, it will be held unconstitutional, and any applicant would be entitled to what's called site-specific relief, which means they could put this undesirable or purported undesirable use almost anywhere in the community. So you have to do it right, or you could face a much greater harm in the long run.
And I want to be clear, it had been moved in the code now to the industrial section only. So it is permitted, but only in industrial section. So it is permitted in the borough. We don't have a choice of whether we allow them or not. We have a choice of what district they're in. And so they're allowed to be in the industrial district, which is essentially the public works building and a few other properties in that area.
So based on zoning code, we cannot just say that there's no sex shops in Crafton Borough.
That's correct.
So we have to say where they would be.
Correct.
We have to allow for every constitutionally allowed use, we have to allow for it somewhere.
Yeah. So usually in a zoning ordinance, because, although it is a document that changes over time, there are uses that develop over time that, we may not be able to keep up with. So there's usually, and I believe there is in this document, there is a catch-all provision which says any other zoning use not provided herein is permitted in this district. And I'm assuming that's probably the industrial district.
Yep.
And so that's how you handle that. And that's how you put yourself in a position where something's not going to sneak up on you in the long run.
Yes.
So specifically to circle back around to the remark that was made earlier, it is not permitted in this central transportation.
Right.
Only in the industrial.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
There were also some comments made about minimum unit sizes, which I wonder if we could have some discussion about the difference between a zoning code, which is land use, and our building code, which we also have, and that applies, and we are not changing that.
Yep, and that is standard best practice. It was common for many years to put those details in zoning codes, but because the building codes also dictate that, they have just started to eliminate it, and best practice to eliminate it in zoning codes because it's already dealt with in building practices. So these are required, these are building practices that are across the board. Now, they do allow for micro apartments in certain cases, but that is bigger than a a tiny house that are all often common now too. So these have all the amenities and they're safe. But they are smaller apartments now. Are they common? Not very, because not many people want to live in them, and developers typically build what people want, so.
And can you comment on roughly how many properties in the borough we could even be talking about?
Well, there's, right now, if you're talking, I mean, you can do it, you're talking about vacant, if you're talking about vacant properties, there are some 78 vacant properties that could be built on, but they have to be built. The only thing that would be built on most of those is homes, single family homes, because there's a provision in the code that any single lot can have a single family home. That would be on any place that they could build a multi-unit building. They could build those types of, but they'd have to tear down something that already exists, because most of those lots are already built.
But nothing in like our residential.
No.
Okay,
No.
so none of these micro homes or
No.
tiny homes
Or
on any property in the residential.
They could, there wouldn't be individual micro homes, but if you build an apartment complex in a CR district, then you could have some micro apartments in it, yeah.
Okay, so, but that's the district where we are currently allowing apartments.
Correct.
Which has not changed very much.
Correct, and just keep in mind that you need at least one parking space for every unit in an apartment complex like that. So if you built 30 of them, it typically would not be cost effective for a developer if they had to build a parking space for every one of them, which they are required to do. So it's highly unlikely that those will pass.
So basically, what we're saying is the places that something like this could be done, and what we do have in the zoning code would pretty much restrict this to very few or almost relatively unlikely potential.
Yeah, it's fairly, I mean, Mike, I don't know if you have any, I mean, it's hard to say, like what people do, but yeah.
And then we want to emphasize that even though they are small, they do have all the amenities, they meet legal housing standards, the building codes.
Yeah, they have
The national building codes that were required.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do we have data on how many new homes have been built in Crafton over the past decade?
Sure.
One. It's one, yeah. Yeah, the demand for new construction in Crafton is almost zero. John happened about 10 years ago.
And that's what I wanted to bring up was that I think we're afraid that developers are going to swoop into Crafton. They haven't done it for 10 years, just me. And I lived here for 18 and built my house on a lot that came open, which I was very blessed to have. And it's a single family home. I hope everybody feels it's okay and nice. But that's it in 10 years. So I built it 10 years ago. Prior to that, there was nothing, I think even for 20 years, because they didn't even know what to do with my house. So when I came to the borough to get my house, which I actually didn't have to do, they put me through the zoning board and all these other things, which wasn't a requirement, because the inspector that was here at the time did not know what to do with the new house. They hadn't done it for so long. So I think as we look at this fear of hundreds of people coming in and building on land that doesn't exist, it's not here. It is one. So I mean, let's realize that's, and I hope we all feel that it's okay if somebody wants to build a single family home on a lot that somebody actually sells. That answers your question.
If I may comment briefly on some remarks about exclusionary zoning and social equality, those issues. Zoning historically has very much been used as a tool for exclusion, typically by income levels, excluding out lower income levels, and therefore oftentimes people of color. Our current code compared to this new code, our current code is, I'll avoid using the word significantly more, but it is more exclusionary than this draft of the current code. In fact, the committee, as the committee knows, As Jim knows, we were making arguments for inclusionary things such as ADUs, being able to build on smaller lots, conversion apartments, those sorts of things, to create more of an inclusionary environment for all income levels. And those have been removed at the community's request from the new code. That said, the new code is still better than the current code as far as inclusion goes in general.
You. Any other comments? I had some. One is about the analysis here. I haven't read through the whole thing, but once I realized this was generated by AI, am I correct? And I mean, AI is not a reliable source. I mean, I hope we all realize that AI is not a person. It is gathering data from the internet, and it is not a person reading through our code, which our planning commission has been doing. So, you know, trusting AI to make an analysis and then make recommendations to us as council, I think is something we need to consider. And we all have AI in our jobs, and we know how that works.
I'll also add, I saw some things in that I thought were very interesting. There were some sustainability recommendations that I personally thought were excellent. However, a part of this zoning update was to make the code a little bit more address things that were missing, things like uses that have changed in the past. You know, since it was passed on, if the use is not in our code, it is by default allowed anywhere. And you know, updating it to reflect things that have changed, updating it to just make it easier to enforce because enforcement has been an issue. And updating it to just be a little bit more flexible. We all know how costs are rising. We don't want our taxes to rise. The money we're getting from the federal government is going down, and costs of everything are going up. So that was one of the initial generating factors in doing this, was to not make any major changes, try to respect the character that we have, which has many different housing types already, but allow a little bit more flexibility for people to be able to have options to fix up their home, stay in their home, maybe get a little bit of rental assistance if they rent out an ADU, for example, which again is no longer in this update. Where I'm going with that is some of the sustainability things I think we should continue talking about. That being said, to require them through zoning would make renovations more expensive for everybody. So I think they're great suggestions that we should pursue, but not require in zoning.
Jim, you had sent us a document of a study that was done a couple of years ago. You wouldn't call that an impact study, correct? That was more recommendations on proposed code versus new code.
It's the closest thing that you can say to an impact study is
There's the analysis.
Yeah, why it was comparing
diagnostic analysis. Yeah, and it made a whole series of recommendations, most of which made it in the code. The ones that didn't were the ones that the community wanted to pull out. So that, although that wasn't an analysis of this code, it is basically what led to this code. Most of the suggestions in that are in this code. The parking changes, all those are best practices, and that's, you know, the changing for not including apartment sizes and whatnot in the code they're all best practices. So, yep.
And we have a question maybe for the solicitor. I just want to clarify that what you said, I heard it correctly. But what we were going to vote on today is just to send to the county for review. We're no way tied to what we send, and then we can make changes, we can adapt things, and then that maybe I'll go back through the process again. But this is just getting another set of eyes on.
That's correct.
Proposals.
You are absolutely right.
And I think it'd be interesting if we can talk a little bit about the length of time this process has been going on and the access that the public has had to the zoning code. So we've heard a lot about public meetings, having public eyes on it, but I believe it's been out there for a very long time. And if people had questions about it, they could bring them up to anybody, including Planning Commission, Mike, Jim, anybody that was there.
That's correct.
So can we talk a little bit about the history?
Sure, it started before my time here. I was hired in January of 23. The steering committee had already been largely formed. And that the steering committee process lasted about a year. The first portion lasted about a year until there was a public outreach in February of 2024. And then there were several more steering committee meetings, and then planning commission received it officially, I think in July. And then the August meeting is when there was a outpouring of people that came to that one. And then we've had public meetings every month since, plus an additional meeting in April. That was a public outreach meeting as well. And there's been an online survey process that has been a part of this. There have been surveys and Mentimeters done at individual events, as well as those public meetings. So we're more than 2.5 years in at this point in the official process.
Do you know, or can you easily check the start date of the contract? I want to say this project started with the consultant who kicked it off, and who did that due diligence report that you referenced, and then the initial drafting. I think they started in May of 2022.
I have the dates right in front of me. As a
please?
matter of fact, the first community visioning session was August 18th of 2022. So Zone Code must have came on a month or two prior to that. Yeah. So August 18th, 2022 is when it officially launched.
Yep. Right, I forgot that there was a public engagement before that. I forgot. Yep. So we're coming up on 3 years. Well, with them being hired, it's already been 3 years. Yep.
Yeah, I believe they did start a bit before that, though you would be right that was the first public thing. I think they had started a bit before that and done some of their initial data collection and analysis. Summer 2022 for sure.
Summer 22.
We're 3 years in.
Any other comments or questions? Personally, my thought on this is that my thought was to have planning commission review it and then be able to review it, the final version from planning commission myself, which I have not done. So I would be hesitant to move it to council or to the county council because
It's county, not county council.
not council, the planning.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, because I haven't even had a chance to review it. I think if we send it to them and we haven't reviewed it, and then we have to make changes, then we're just going back and forth. And we're like, here's another document. And then if we have more changes, here's another document to send to them. I think it's just in the best interest. My recommendation would be to give us time to review the document and also have our public reach out to us if they have questions or comments too, so that we can take that and then have a very good discussion, whether it be the next council meeting or whenever we feel that it's a good time to have it. I would even be in favor of another little mini workshop the council could attend and listen to too, where there's more time. Because there isn't a rush, contrary to what maybe some people have said, there isn't a rush to get this done, although it's been going on a long time. And I think we won't be able to do everything. That's the key thing. Like, we have to realize, like, I'm sure there's people that want ADUs to be available and they're not going to be in the documents. So there's going to be things that we can and can't do, but that's what the zoning is. And we have to think about the next 20 years because the document we currently have is 20 years old and things are going to be different in 20 years. So things like parking and other things, those are things we have to look at. So that would be my thought. Again, we have a motion on the table right now.
I agree with you, John.
Yeah, I have not read the latest draft, so I would not be super comfortable sending it to the county for the reasons you outlined. We're going to make changes and we don't want to thrash and keep sending things back to them. So I think we could maybe roll up a little bit for this.
All right, Mike, and we do have a motion on the table, so we would need to vote on the motion.
I can support either way. I think that, I also haven't read the latest iteration since it passed 2 days ago. And I would like to do that. But also knowing that the planning commission has had it through multiple rounds and has spent, ample amount of time on it, I can't imagine I'm going to go in and say all of a sudden something you've spent a year working through. I have a brand new idea I'm gonna put in. We are not adopting it anytime soon either way, so I would be very comfortable, especially with all of the time that's passed and all of the different changes that have been made and the fact that we have been trying to wrestle with a lot of those changes on our own after our contract with our consultant expired. I would really like to see what we hear back from the county. I would like to see what their review is and if they have any comments on it. But I also do want to read the entire thing, and that will happen whether it's simultaneous with their review or whether it's before their review. So I'm happy just either way.
And my point being, it just seems like it would be a longer time if we sent it to them and then we're like, oh, we have these changes and what we sent you isn't any good. So just stop looking at it, or we get it back and then we're sending it back and we wait another 45 days. It just seems like it's a lot of work when
they could also send us comments and then we decide we want to make changes and then we have to send it back. So, I mean, that's kind of where I stand. I think that those reviews can happen one at a time, or they can happen simultaneously. I don't have any particular preference either way.
What's the bar for having to, like, if we make changes, is it that? We're assuming like typos and stuff like that doesn't matter, but is this substantial, like?
Basically, anything that would change any of the material intent of the ordinance, not commas, not, typos, as you said. But if we would change the height of something, the setbacks, the uses, how we treat certain uses, etc. Basically, the way I've advised my clients is that it's not worth trying to thread the needle there, and unless we're just, changing moving some 2 paragraphs around, but not changing anything, we should just send it down and get them to look at it again. So there's no, it can't be challenged on a procedural basis.
Could we also, and this is, I think, just for informational purposes, for us and for the community, have a recap of what the process is to make changes to the zoning ordinance, because that is something that we can do and that communities regularly do. We are doing a whole update at this point because it is good to do periodically as you make a lot of, one-off small changes, you introduce contradictions. And that is something that we had. And so we were trying to clean that up, but it's not a one and done. We do it and we can't touch it for 20 years. Can you just talk through the process of what happens when if and when we want to make individual changes?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's a good point to make that it is traditional that 6 months after you pass an ordinance, 6 months to a year, that you do a review of how it went with code enforcement and any assessments and whatnot, and you make updates at that time. So it's common to reopen it 6 months to a year after a major change is passed, just in case things weren't caught or things, or maybe things need to be slightly tweaked because once they were put into practice, they were different. So you can reopen it or make amendments, and we have made amendments. You can make amendments at any time. You just have to follow the amendment process of an ordinance. Or and zoning ordinance a little different, but yeah.
Well, which is it's the process we're doing right now for approval of the entire rewrite. So this is like one giant amendment versus just looking at one section and changing a word or two here or there. But the process is the same. Any amendment would have to be advertised twice, go to the county for 45 days, have a public hearing, and then a vote.
Yep.
Right. Any other comments? Right. We do have a motion on the table. So we can go to a vote unless anybody wants to pull the motion that's already out there. All right. Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
How about I?
Aye. One. Opposed? Aye.
No.
No.
The motion does not pass. So it's a 1-5 vote. So again, I think we need to think about to review this final document to review. And my recommendation is, and again, for this council is, do we think of some type of meeting where we're involved in the meeting where we can listen to people and or do a presentation? And then people ask individually. I want to stress that we will not be able to do everything that people ask. Like, that's just, it can't be what you want. It has to be what's for the community. So even though we may want a brick road in front of our house based on zoning or whatever, we can't always do that. And we have to remember it's everybody. Thank you, everyone, for the good discussion, the information, and also the hard work of the staff and the community too, for the opinions on this. Next is the standing committee reports, finance, administration, and sustainability. Mr. Hope.
I'm fine with either council president or the borough manager handling my report. I'm in the car at the moment, so I'm not able to actually handle my report in front of me.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so we had for the for 2025 budget versus actual, we're still right where we need to be. The biggest concern at this point is sale transfers. We're down and we're guessing that that's those are the money that we get when people sell houses. We're guessing that has been lower just because of the volatility in the market right now. We were hoping that we budgeted that a little bit up because we had seen interest rates going down consistently, and that has since kind of leveled off a little bit. In addition, there's uncertainty in the market about what's going to happen, and we think that's slowing things down. So that is the biggest concern. You can see the account balances as of May 31st there on the agenda. So those are all in good positions, exactly where we thought they would be. So we're doing well. So thank you.
And for my comments on this and looking at the budget, there are areas that are over budget, areas that are under budget, but nothing that's alarming. In fact, it looks like we're on track to potentially be a little bit better than the budget by the end of the year.
Yep.
So it's still very fiscally managed from a budget perspective. And again, very thankful for the grants we've received so that we can do a lot of these projects. Infrastructure and land use, Ms. Comptello.
Hey, I don't have anything major. We've kept these items on the agenda since January, the energy audit and the DCED grant. So I'll just start off. We did have an infrastructure meeting 2 weeks ago. I was actually traveling, so I was by phone only, and the audio wasn't great. And so we did talk a bit about that DCED grant, the energy audit. We did not talk about that funding. That project started. It's fully paid for by a grant that we received, and it started some months ago. So I'll ask the borough manager to give a bit more clear update on this.
I don't have an update on it. They're basically, we had to get paperwork to them. I think it's probably been 2 months now. We got it to them and we haven't heard back. So I will ping them and see where we're at with that. I do not know. We basically got the grant and immediately started the work. So, but I don't know where we're at with that. So I will ping them.
And the DCED grant, we've talked about that. Here in council, we have a grant from the state that we can use for pedestrian and business district improvements. We had been hoping that we would be able to pair that with some additional funding. We did get a response that we are not going to be able to pair that. We have some funding remaining from another project on Crafton Boulevard that we had hoped that we could reallocate towards this. And we looked into the terms of that, and we requested that shift, and it was denied. So we do now have our final amount. We have the $325,000 that we were awarded by DCED. We had talked previously with council about how we've come up with a number of different potential improvements most of them relatively small, things that involve a lot of furniture, benches, trash cans. A lot of those ideas were tested out with the planning commission and with the business subcommittee. Those were also then presented here in council, and because of the way, well, Mr. Tedesco had done some initial pricing on each of those different concepts, and we probably can actually do most, if not all of them. So it'll come down to really deciding exactly, now that we know that we can't add those additional funds and this is our final budget. Now we can start deciding exactly how we're going to proceed with that. And we didn't really get into any further discussion or details on that at the last infrastructure meeting. We do have a lot of other projects going on right now. And so we're kind of continuing to consider at what point we're going to be ready to do a wave of some public input, a survey to start testing out what designs people like most, what locations people might like most. But there has been no substantial update on that since the last council meeting.
Maybe a quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
quick,
you wanna
comment?
Yep.
The driving independent variable on the DCED funding is the expense of decorative lighting and all that goes into installation, which kind of gets complicated kind of quick, actually. So on a per light basis, the expense of actually buying the light and then installation, the expense of installation, and all of that obviously scales with volume. So early next week, I have a conversation with Gateway Engineers. They do decorative lighting all the time. So the goal is to get to the bottom of a firm cost estimate per light for decorative lights, and then all the other expenses will really fall into place. So that's the big question right now. And then we can have fun conversations about where to put the stuff and what the lights look like, those sorts of questions.
Can I make a recommendation for this? Because I think now that planning commission doesn't have zoning, give this project, because I know they had discussed and there was some good feedback from the public on this, to turn this over to planning commission to then make the recommendation to council, versus the infrastructure committee with a lot of the other projects that we're working on is looking at this without the ability to have that discussion from planning and then have that recommendation come forward.
That already went to planning commission and it can.
But there wasn't a resolution, I don't think. That was the first time they presented it. People talked about flowers and everything else, but there wasn't, then it never talked about again at another meeting. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big decision points, once we get to the bottom of all things lighting, the big decision points will be, what do you want the lights to look like? How many do you want to buy? And then where to place them specifically, the geography. I mean, depending upon how many are purchased, how much of coverage does that provide? And then everything else, bike racks, planters, benches, those are all very affordable. And where to place those and those are fun conversations that we can have with planning commission or with infrastructure committee. It's actually, it's not a very complicated project, is the thing. So there's just not a lot to talk about.
We did talk about sending it and continuing to involve the planning commission, the business subcommittee, and also public input and a survey. We just are not quite ready to be at the point that we have enough to put in front of anyone. But we're getting closer with some better costings that will allow those conversations to actually be more fruitful. We have to have some hard numbers and something for them to work with before we put it in front of anyone again.
And that's why I'm looking, it's a project, and give it to planning to actually take care of the project and then make the recommendation, because I think if we keep it in infrastructure and council, there's a lot. We're dealing with C20 Broadhead, all the other things, have planning, put it together, get their opinions.
Yeah, I've already confirmed it's already been to planning and we'll go back to planning. Nothing is happening in the infrastructure committee other than gathering costs.
Yeah, that's the next big step is to have a more thorough definition of what can be done, and then really deciding where those things, and we can definitely take it back to planning.
I'd like to hear what they recommend, and then the public, and then come to us. And it might be different than what comes out of infrastructure.
Nothing has come out of the infrastructure committee other than exploring costs.
And we do have, what's the time limit on this too?
We just got the money, so we have like 3 years. Yeah.
Can I ask for a clarification? We got authorization that we're going to get the money if we
Yes.
spend it.
Yes,
We do not have
when I
any
say
of
yes,
this money.
yes, that's
Thank you.
correct. Grants do not, you're awarded a grant, does not mean you receive any of the money.
Right.
You don't receive the money until you spend the money.
Right.
Yes, thank
So
you.
that's, I mean, these are really nice projects and that we want to have done and just moving it as we can with the resources we have.
I think running design alternatives through planning commission is a great idea.
Yeah.
A great idea.
Yeah, all of that.
But getting to those alternatives is.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all.
Okay, great. Communication recreation, Ms. Bodenbacher.
Fourth of July celebration is happening on Friday the 4th, starting at 4 o'clock. With fireworks capping off the night around 9:30. The entertainment plan for the evening is smoke and mirrors. Some of the things to do include face painting, balloon art, petting zoo, inflatable obstacle course, spin art, and lawn games. We will also have, as Mayor Perry said earlier, we'll be hopefully giving Chief Sumter a fond farewell and a very nice greeting to our new Chief Ford. Some of the things to consume that we'll be having there will be funnel cakes, the Pittsburgh crepe truck, Ray's pizza truck, twisted lemonade truck. The Crafton Boy Scouts will be selling pop and water, and we will have Back Alley Brewing back for this year as well.
Might I interject here that the day starts off at 8 a.m. with the fun walk run, 5K walk run that starts at the park at roughly at 8 o'clock. All are invited. There are no costs. It's not an official 5K or anything. It has been growing over the last few years, and we've had strollers and wagons and all kinds of things. It's been really, really nice. So please come on out and get a little exercise before you eat all that fun food.
Other upcoming events include our Fall Fest on Saturday, September 27th. Our Halloween mini golf pop-up is a 21 and over event, will be Saturday, October 11th. Celebration of Lights is Saturday, December 6th. And the Holiday House Tour will be Sunday, December 14th. I'll have details for those as they come a little closer. We also have our new ongoing events as well as our consistent ongoing events going on in the community. I mentioned a few of them last meeting, including the new yoga and meditation in the park every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. That is free to the community. Weather pending, but if the weather is bad, they will just move everybody to the stage. Know that it's available unless the weather is dangerous. In which case, keep an eye on the rec board website as well as Savvy Citizen. They will update you if anything does happen to be canceled, but it would be at the last minute. So just keep an eye out for that. We also have things like the Coffee Creativity and Community that's still going on every Saturday at the library from 12 to 3. And of course, mini golf is now open for the summer every Friday and Saturday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And it's $2 a round. Just another note, the next rec board meeting was changed. It was originally on July 8th, but they did want to have one more meeting prior to the Independence Day celebration. So their meeting has been moved to July 1st at 7 o'clock and will still be in the community room here at the Borough. And as always, they're looking for volunteers, always, always, always. So if you can come, if you're planning on coming to an event, if you could spare even an hour of your time to help them out, they do so much work to put towards these and they could really use the help. So if it's something you think you could do for us, please go to the website, Crafton Borough's website, and just shoot them an email and let them know. You don't have to agree to a certain day, time, event, nothing. Just let them know that you might be interested in volunteering and they will reach out to you with options you can choose to accept or decline. If there are any questions on the events, our newsletter has been out. Hopefully everybody has received theirs. There is a digital option online if you have not, or if you just prefer the digital option. Our next newsletter will be out in October and we will be beginning to request articles in probably the next month or so. I think the next ones are going to be due in August. Is that what we decided?
August 1st, I think.
August 1st, I believe, was the date we set.
September.
So the request will be put out pretty soon. Other than that, I think that's all I got. So thanks very much.
Great. All right, Board Commission recruiting, Ms. Compitello.
I forgot that I was going to be the one giving this
I
tonight
saw that.
because we don't have him here. Current open positions. It's a little shorter. It has been a little shorter lately, which is really great that we've had so many applicants and we've filled so many seats. But there are always rounds of things coming open, and you can always track on the website the seats that are all of the seats that we have and when they will become available. So current open positions, we do have a Civil Service Commission seat, one alternate seat. It is a 6-year term, and it will be expiring February 1st, 2029. So that's currently open. We are, would love to have any applicants who would like to serve as an alternate for the Civil Service Commission. You would apply at craftonborough.com/commissions. And that also has information about the brief information about what it means to serve on the Civil Service Commission. We also have upcoming positions. There is going to be a couple of zoning hearing board positions that will become available in January of 2026. So anyone who's interested, you can start queuing up your application. You've only got 6 months to go. There will be a 3-year term, regular, and both 3-year terms, one regular 3-year term and one alternate 3-year term. Again, both of those opening on January 1st, 2026. And also the applications for all of these positions apply at craftonborough.com/commissions. And that is all for open positions or upcoming positions.
Thank you. COG, Council of Governments, Ms. Bowenbacher.
Not much happened at the last COG meeting. It's the last one for the summer, so there's not a whole lot of business. They're more interested in, the food and the door prizes and that kind of stuff. So not much to report there, and they are now on summer session until September. So you all have a respite from me asking you to join.
So September's the next one.
September is the next.
I forget, do we have one scheduled?
We don't have one coming until next year.
Okay.
We're done for the year, because we did one in April.
I don't know. That's a recent.
Yeah, we did one earlier this
We
spring.
did one earlier this year.
Yeah.
I think, we don't have another one
That
till.
was late last year. All right, community announcements. Our next council meeting is July 10th at 7 o'clock. Pool passes are available. Everybody knows the pool's been open. It's been very crowded, which is nice. And pool passes are available on our website. 4th of July celebration. Both our mayor and Ms. Bowenbacher went over those details. That's coming up on next Friday in Crafton Park. Crafton Performing Arts Music Series starts on on July 10th, not July 11th, as the agenda says, and that's at Crafton Park stage. One thing I did want to mention is a sincere thank you to Chief Sumner. I don't know if he's listening, but for all his years of service and dedication to the borough and the changes he's made, but the leadership he's shown of that crew is very complimentary, and he keeps all of us safe, and that's critically important and can't be appreciative enough. So I'll definitely be there, and I hope a lot of people will be there to acknowledge him at the park. And I also encourage, if possible, to have Chief Ford come to our next meeting. Maybe just to see council, and
We'll make sure he's here to introduce him to council.
Yeah. All right, any general comments? Okay. Oh, did we skip the solicitor's report? Okay, go ahead. You can do it.
Council will hold an executive session following the meeting to discuss personnel and to receive the advice of the solicitor. That's the end of my delayed report.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Long meeting. All right, public comments. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Council has the option to respond or not at the end of the address. The solicitor is the assigned timekeeper. Please state your name and physical address for the record. Ms. Smith?
Lisa Smith, 50 Walnut Street. I'm gonna tell you a story. I live at the top of 50 Walnut, or well, top of Walnut Street. I came here in 2002. Fell in love with the place. I moved in, everything was great. About 2 years later, had so many termites in the trees were starting to tilt. Called the borough, said your trees are falling off the hillside, could you come get them before they take out my shed, my pool, my neighbor? They said, no, they said, that's your property. I said, no, it's not. I had my lot lines done when I bought the house. They said, no, because there's an alleyway up there, you have to do from your wall to the alleyway, you have to maintain that. I said, oh, that's news to me. I wasn't told that when I moved in. They said, yeah, you take care of that. I said, well, I want the trees cut down. He said, yeah, go ahead. I said, okay, well, put it in writing, because I'm not cutting these trees down, paying for it, and then you come back at me and say, you cut down my trees, we're Tree City USA, you cut down my trees. He wrote it up, I paid to have all the trees taken off the hillside, but the two nice ones. I was told I had to maintain from my wall up to the alleyway. I have for years, I've climbed up on that hillside, I've cleaned it all off, I've taken care of it. Then we had, the borough used to come and take care of the alleyway. It was paved. They used to salt it, they used to plow it, they used to keep a salt box up top of the alleyway that's right at the end of my driveway. So that the people that lived in the alley could get up and down. Then, John, I can't remember his last name. He moved, he was real big in the borough, and after that. They stopped taking care of the alleyway, because John didn't live there anymore and he needed to get up and down it, and, lady that wanted to sell a house, she went and she graded everything down. Cause she wanted to sell her house, graded it all down 2 feet, the alley used to be level with my hillside. Now my hillside comes up and it goes down and the alley's down here, and all the trees on that side, their roots are all showing. Now they repaved Crafton Boulevard. Rain comes down, I don't know where it all comes from, all the gravel out of the alley goes into the street. I spent, I don't know how many hours shoveling all this gravel up, shoveling it back into the alley, trying to fill in the divots. Called the borough didn't wanna do anything about it, they said, that's not our alley, that's your alley. I said, that's not my alley, I don't own that. They finally said, yeah, you own half of it. You own half of it, it runs your property, and then those 5 houses own the other half of it. They're responsible, because it's less than 20 feet, so now you're taking care of that. It's not my property. I don't own it, I don't pay taxes on it, it shouldn't be my job to maintain. Other day during the storm, a tree fell down. Okay, it came down from the other side. Landed, broke all over my driveway, it's tangled up in the cable and the telephone wires. Called the borough, I said, tree came down, they said, that's not our problem, that's your problem. I said, it's not my problem, it wasn't my tree. There's nobody that lives in that house is owned by a conglomerate, so I had to play Nancy Drew all day and find out who owned it. Make phone calls to all the companies with that name, New York, Pennsylvania. Nobody is claiming ownership of the house. Called Duquesne Light, I said, it's in the wires, you gonna come get it? Duquesne Light said, yeah, we'll come get it. They came and looked, they said, oh no, that's not our wires, that's cable and electric. Okay, I called Comcast, told Comcast, it's in the wires, you gonna come get it? And they said, 7 to 10 days, maybe not, we don't know. It's not bothering us. Called my insurance company, and I said, if I don't do something about this and it comes down and it smacks my house or my cars, who's paying for this? Am I paying for it because I knew it was standing here and I didn't fix it? They said, the borough cannot make you maintain land that does not belong to you, that you don't own, that you don't pay taxes for. We've been fighting over this property for I don't know how long, and you guys need to decide whether I own it, whether the people on the hill own it. I don't need that alleyway, I have a driveway. You wanna sell it and make money off of it, then sell it to the people up on the hillside. But there is absolutely no reason why I've gotta come up with $1,000 or more to get a tree that is not on my property, that has fallen into the telephone wires, but are threatening my house, threatening my cars, and threatening my cable and internet. So, anybody wanna tell me what my next move is, or are you guys just gonna tell me, call somebody to remove the tree?
Larry, have you already, I was not aware of this at all. Have you been?
I'm not aware of this.
Who did you talk to at the borough who said that?
Next month.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I mean, it is true that paper streets, if they're not maintained by the borough and the portion behind your house does not look like it's maintained by the borough, do become the responsibility of the abutting property owner, and that is true across the borough. But I was not aware of it. I mean, we can definitely take a look at it and see if we can help, but it is traditional that went to the middle of a paper street, the abutting property owners are responsible for that property. So even though you don't pay taxes on that property, that is still considered responsibility of the homeowner. And because there's paper streets all over the borough that are not maintained by the borough. Where it is maintained, where it is paved, we take care of that. But
Years ago, a cement truck came and backed up it and it pulled the berm off. And it had a nice berm and the rain ran down, it ran into the street. And I called when the cement truck ruined the berm, because then things started washing into my driveway. The borough said, no, it's not our problem, that's your neighbor whose concrete truck did it, but you never made her fix it, you never did anything. It eroded, it started falling away, and then all the pavement is gone.
I think the best thing is, let's sit down and talk about this. I was not aware that this was occurring, so there's certainly things we can do as far as the water is concerned, so that the water doesn't come rushing into your house, and any changes that the borough make, we have often made changes to, put in additional curbage or whatever has to happen to divert the water. We can definitely, Larry and I can definitely talk to you about that. I have your email and everything. Sorry that you didn't get to us in the first place, but we can definitely figure out those problems.
Right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
The tree,
What?
the tree still.
Yeah, the tree is still across the alleyway. The neighbors that use the alleyway haven't been up in a week and a half now.
Yeah. I mean, we will definitely, we'll come take a look tomorrow and see what we can do. Yep, thank you. Yep.
Don't remember, I don't think anybody else was on there.
No.
Okay, anybody in the audience? Ben?
Ben Belmont, 270 West Steuben Street. I do have a small concern with the schedule for the zoning code update. With the schedule we kind of laid out today, worried that it's starting to abut with the election schedule. And several of the members on this council are up for re-election, and I just want to make sure that, or get a commitment, that you might not want to, that you would have passed the thing in like October till the next council comes on. I don't care if it's before or after, just those few months, I will be very against a major change like that being made by a council who might have new members coming on. And the public not really being given a chance to vote on those changes.
Okay, I can address that, because there's only 2 council members that are up for election. And that speaks to integrity. And I would say that, at least from my perspective, is that if I made any decision based on the election versus what's best for the borough, that would violate my own internal values. And I don't make decisions that way. So that will not happen with me. And I want to be very clear about that. I don't make decisions based on the election. I make decisions based on my values. And what's best for the community.
Comment about anybody,
Yeah.
I'm just worried that schedules tend to get a little past point, and I'm just wanting to be sure that in those couple of months, this is not voted on.
Okay. I don't know if you want to speak to it, Aaron, or no, as being the other.
I agree with you. The election bears no meaning on what I do and don't do. With my position, I promise I will still do the best to my ability. I can't really say I will or won't vote for something between October and December, just because I will or won't be on council come January. But I will always take everything to heart, and I don't make any decisions based on what I think
might get me elected. I definitely don't do that. I would not do that.
All right, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to, talk about the borough engineering, how that, discussion came up. In the zoning code, there's references to the borough engineering. And, so Larry is the borough engineer of record.
No, he's not.
He is not the borough, but he's called the borough engineer, but, so that's really, he's not the borough engineer of record.
Correct.
Right, okay, all right, because the zoning code says borough engineer of record can make these different decisions, and so the fear was that there could be a disconnect there, and then the borough could be in big trouble.
Yeah.
But, Larry's not the borough engineer.
Correct. The borough who, when they're appointed during reorganization, when the engineers are appointed, they are the engineers of record.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Go.
Nicole Crafton, 194 South Grandview. I think this is all. Is that all right? So I just want to thank everybody for taking into account the spirit of the petition and the comments, which was to request a thoughtful review of some of the concerning items that have been brought up. I do just want to speak to the AI aspect. You know, I very clearly put on that report how it was generated and provided the prompts on purpose, because I do think ethical use of AI is extremely important and it should be used with caution. When I use it in my area of expertise, I know right away whether I'm, whether it's getting it right, but outside that area, what I'm using it for and in this purpose, my intention was to stimulate thinking about, right, what best practice could be or options. Certainly not saying that it is in any way a recommendation. But I do thank you for your judiciousness and caution in wanting to get this right and listening to what people are saying and taking the time to process what's on the latest draft. And especially to reduce rework. And I really love the idea of the public meeting that you suggested and was wondering how we might be able to submit questions perhaps in advance so that they could at least be that we have the time to thoughtfully review and respond to them. So you have thoughts about how we could do that or what that would look like? Where we should submit them, for example.
Yeah. But let's work on that. Like, again, we didn't have a discussion prior to that, so that would be something that we would need to talk about how we would go. Again, it's just been 2 days. Yeah.
One other comment then is related to some of the things that I love to see in the zoning code that I never brought up, but with subsidizing home ownership, for example, and there are things, like that I would be interested in seeing, but I'm obviously not an expert, and I don't know how we would implement them or whether the zoning code is the appropriate place for them, right? And so basically, what I'm wondering is if and to your comments about requirements and whether they should be in the code or not, especially related to climate change. Some of the recommendations in the report that I gave are more like we should have bonuses and incentives toward these ends, right? And how can we do that? I don't know whether the zoning code is the appropriate place for bonuses and incentives either, but essentially I would like to know who we should consult, like who are you consulting and who should we consult when we have questions like that?
Provided to us, provided to Mike and myself. We could get into depth about all of those things. Incentives are difficult to manage, and typically, larger entities, larger municipalities can do incentives. And there are ways to do that, but it is not something that's easy to handle at a small borough like this and not typically done in smaller boroughs like this. But I don't know if you have, but we can certainly talk, direct them to us, and we can definitely get that information. And if we have to consult somebody, we will do so. Yep.
Right. May I speak to the current situation of subsidized housing in this borough? We have 2 apartment buildings that we affectionately call the senior high rises. They, between them, have about 220 units, and they are they are all subsidized housing based on income. And I personally know a number of people who are in those apartments. I have been in them. They're very nice. The amount of subsidy is significant. And that I do know that we have actually a number of our longtime residents have retired into those units as they've downsized, so they have been able to stay in the community. Both of these high rises are extremely clean. They're extremely well run. The residents are always, you know, I do spend a lot of time more at the plaza than the tower because of personal responsibilities I have for one of the residents there. But it is very important for us to really understand the size of the subsidized housing that has been in this community actually since before I moved here 30 years ago. So I just like to put that in the record. And if you've got any more questions or would like to connect with management at either or both of those, please reach out to me.
Anyone else? Cody?
Voting sheets 152 Promenade, start with some questions. Where will the $100,000 that was saved on the sewer separation project in item 9A go, since it was all grant funded? Jim, could you ask Teresa Gilman, since you're already in contact with her for cooperation to remedy the issue at the stop sign at Sarah Street and Hall Avenue that has been discussed here before? And will Borough emails change in tandem with launch of the new website? You know, I remember reading an article about a year ago that described an individual in this room as treating the public as if they are an obstacle to be overcome. And that was said by a state representative of Pennsylvania. And, you know, to gloss over a petition that is signed by 134 of your residents and lie and sit here and lie to us and tell us that there is no such thing as impact studies is, again, categorically false. There is impact studies. Of course, it is not on zoning in general, but it is certainly on, and I'll list them for you. Even though I sent this to all of you, I'll list them for you. You can do impact studies on borough infrastructure, emergency public services, racial equality, home values, property taxes, the school district, parking availability, population density, local business development. And if you would like, I can send you a list of a bunch of businesses within the Pittsburgh area that provide those impact studies. This is categorically false. You have completely ignored this petition. One workshop to ask questions is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. At least two. Explain the draft, explain the things, collect the questions, and then come back and have a second one and describe your answers to those questions. This is totally misleading. Mr. President, if this thing is what decides, in your words, the future of Crafton for the next 10 to 20 years, then it makes sense to do impact studies on key issues. It makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. And you're talking about it not being about us or it being about everybody. This is the majority will right here. I have not seen, I can count 3 people in this room that support this ordinance. 3 people outside of this council and whoever's sitting at this table. The majority will, is we want this done.
All right, so the $100,000 saved on the sewer project?
It'll be in the bond fund, so it's up to council to decide what to do with it moving forward.
Okay. Teresa Kell Smith about Starrett Street.
I can definitely ask them to put a stop bar there. We have asked 311 several times and gotten no response, but I can ask her too.
Okay.
Yep.
The borough emails, will they change with the website?
They will, but well, their emails are changing to .gov as a tail. But if you send the .com, we still get them to the .gov.
They forward.
So they forward. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And last was the impact studies. If anybody wants to address those.
I continue to say that my statement was that there are not impact studies done on zoning codes, and I still am not familiar with any. So, not, yeah.
Yeah, I think there could be just a little confusion in interpretation here. Everything Cody listed, yeah, there's impact studies for those specific things, but on a per development project. Right. It's not necessarily an impact study. What is the zoning code going to do for all of these things? It's on a per development project. So those definitely exist, happen all the time. So.
All right. Anybody else? Yes, Linda.
Quick question, have we, Linda Watts there, have we not originally stated there was $300,000 savings in that sewer separation change to Steuben Street versus the other streets that were considered for the bump outs?
Yeah, we're not, that's not what we were talking about. He was talking about Broadhead. And there was significant money saved, and that is again still in the bond fund, and that bond fund is up on the website. You can take a look at it anytime you want.
But that was 300,000.
Yeah, now granted. Yeah, that's the C20. That was the C20 project. Yep, and that is always updated. In fact, that was updated on in June 6/15, and so that is you can go look at it and see where the bond fund money is going. Yep. Yep.
Can I ask a redirect on that?
Sure.
So when we're talking about a project that is largely grant funded and it comes in $300,000 below, part of that money is less grant money than we get. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so
And
when.
especially on Alcasand grants.
Clear about that.
Yeah, so on Alcasand grants, you only get what money you spend. So again, you don't get the money until you spend it. And in that case, you're getting it as a percentage of the overall project cost. And on eligible project costs, and we don't get all of that money even after we spend it. We won't see the last round of money for that till a year or so after the project is completed, because they monitor the project and see how effective it is. And then they provide the final funding as a part of that. In fact, we didn't get some of the funding for more than 2 years after some of the projects.
Right, so then when we say this particular project came in 300,000 under, it's not that there's an extra 300,000 sitting in the bond fund, but the portion of what we would have paid.
Correct. It's just what was committed to this project on paper. Well, in the bond fund on paper is no longer has to be committed to that project. So it just becomes open money in that. And I think projected, I think we have, if all the projects come in exactly as they're supposed to, which they won't, but if they were, we have, I think, 800,000 left in the bond fund to do projects with. If
To
everything goes
match
right.
grants and those.
Right, but we have to be very cautious about spending it, because again, we don't get that money back on certain projects for years afterwards. So there's going to be a position for a while where we'll probably have negative money in the bond fund, where we've borrowed it from other funds as we wait for the grant money to come through. Because it's a fairly extensive process to request grants, to request reimbursements on some of these.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the math was working and people understood it. Thank you.
Yep.
And change orders happen too.
Yep.
As we've just seen on C20 too. All right, anybody else? Justin?
Hey, Justin Marks, 31 Oregon. I know AI's come up in the last planning meeting, came up tonight. I just want to encourage everybody, like, if you trust the outputs you're getting, please go ahead and verify them. It's not an expert I understand that the prompts and stuff may have been shared with some of you. I think I glanced at that booklet and they're not in there. I didn't get to see them. AI and LLMs are just as biased and opinionated as the prompts that you feed them, just like people would be, right? We could hire somebody to go nitpick 100 different things with a very specific bias, and you could get just as comprehensive of a report. So just verify it. As far as the petition goes, you know, I commend the folks that did the groundwork and got signatures. You know, I think it's super important for council and for the borough staff to reach out to these folks, right? And if you are an elected official here and you see some names or addresses that are, you know, familiar to you, maybe go talk to those folks and let them know that you're there to hear their input and maybe give your perspective on it too. And maybe this is an opportunity for the borough staff to do some outreach, right? Hey, we have this process going on. Here's how you can go find information on the website. Here are some of the FAQs. Here are the previous workshops we've run. And then here's kind of where the process is and how you can get a hold of us if you have questions or concerns. I think that would be a good idea. As far as the zoning draft goes, you know, obviously it's been a pretty short timeline between when it got passed at planning and now it's here. Take time to review it, get comfortable with it. On the point of timelines and getting stuff to the county, right, I would encourage you to parallelize it a bit. Don't serialize it if there's a 45-day window that resets every time. If you wait 3 months to get it up there and then you wait 45 days and they come back with a ton of input that you want to change, like go ahead and implement. It's going to be another 45-day reset after that. So parallelize some of it, make it efficient. And obviously with upcoming elections, don't factor that into your decisions. Do what's right for the community. Don't worry about how it looks to the election, because if it goes too fast or too slow, folks can twist that, how that timeline looks, you know, however they feel like messaging that. Two separate things. The pool, I think it might be interesting. I was thinking about this the other day, talking with some folks from like Carnegie and Ingram, right, who we consider non-residents, but they can buy passes. I think it'd be interesting to talk with the councils there to see if they might be interested in contributing to like the operating fund for the pool and then unlocking those resident rates for their folks. You know, especially with the heat dome and a bunch of other people getting people coming in, you know, the prices are kind of top of mind for a lot of folks. And lastly, I know there have been a number of assessments done on trees around the borough. I imagine that was Shade Tree. I know you were driving around. I had some of my neighbors asking me like, hey, we know some trees were looked at over in our corner. Are they going to do anything? And I don't know that schedules have been shared or communicated, but I think that would be interesting for folks to hear too, because I have one of those trees by my house that I'd like to get taken care of. So that's it. Thanks.
Went really fast, so
is there someone online?
No, I was going to see if we wanted to respond.
Trees. Want to start with trees?
Yeah, I was just going to go through his items. The AI, I don't know that there was too much about that. Reach out to folks, the zoning draft, elections, the pool. So the pool and I think the trees are the two. Any thoughts or comments about those two things?
We could certainly reach out to other communities and see if they would be willing to give us maybe a flat annual fee if we could provide their community with the same rates as we get, as Crafton gets. I don't get what Crafton gets. But we would have to look at capacity and you know, everybody would have to be aware of it. We don't typically hit capacity, although this last couple days, we still didn't hit capacity, but we had to shut it down because we didn't have enough staffing in place. And so there would have to be an analysis of like what that would increase. If there was an increased participation, you know, what would that look like? You know, how much would that cost? All of that. So I don't have any of that analysis, but it's something we consider, and then that would be up to council if that's something that you want to do.
So we do keep a tree maintenance list and a tree removal list for all resident requests that come in, and also sometimes internally we'll spot trees that we know need to get taken care of. We have a licensed arborist who advises us. Your tree is on the list. alongside a number of others. We are gearing up for some removals because there's a couple of emergency removals. So we're gonna do that, I imagine before fall really sets in. So a couple of months, I would bet. And the Shade Tree Commission ordinance requires me to send out notification letters to all adjacent property owners when trees are about to be removed. So you'll get a letter and you'll see it coming down the pipeline.
All Shade Tree Commission meetings are public, so I encourage everybody to come. They are the second Tuesday of every month, just right next door here. And there are minutes taken, there's an agenda, there's a lot of items discussed. Sometimes we do a little field trip. So I encourage everybody to come to those meetings if you have an interest in it. Anybody else?
Is there someone online?
Yeah, I can't see your hand. Corey's not. I'm on up. Chris, I couldn't see.
I have a couple questions about the water main break that occurred on Lower Borough Avenue over the weekend. So I'll just go through my questions. Do you know what caused the issue? And if so, was the underlying issue fixed? Because I think I saw the same thing happen 3 or 4 years ago in the same area. Is the repaving on Lower pretty completed, or will it be coming back to do more work? And then also, who's paying for the repaving and why? Is that paying for the repaving? And then my last question is about the stairwell of this building over there. Maybe if some permanent or automatic lighting could be installed because the lights aren't always on, so I'll try to next to the building that way. Thank you.
Are you familiar with that break?
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, this is the one that sent video. Oh,
Yes,
that's right.
yes.
I am not familiar with this break. Nothing has come across my desk regarding it, and I have not been out there to take a look at it yet.
Yeah.
So I do know that Pennsylvania American Water was on the scene on Saturday. I happened to have gone downtown. So I was going down Crafton Boulevard, 45 minutes to come back, and there was water coming across with a lot of gravel. So I took a ride up and our officer on duty was already there. The Pennsylvania American Water person was there. I know that he shut it down, and you saw the video, or not the video, the pictures afterwards. And we know most of us have seen the videos that were put on social media. It was amazing how fast that damage happened and how much water under pressure, caused a lot of damage. So I would really encourage Larry to reach out to American Water to find out what the situation is. I know that they came out and they took care of a lot of the gravel. My understanding is those sorts of things are their responsibility to fix. Ultimately we have had more of these because of how old the infrastructure actually is. It's not possible for us to speak to what the water company did, how well they fixed the issue, or whether it is exactly the same one. So it might be, I think these are all worthwhile. It was very, it was very alarming. It was very alarming.
Yeah, and they're already in violation of our ordinance because they were supposed to file that within 24 hours after the event happened.
That
So we
happened
should have,
Saturday at noon.
I know, so we should have gotten notice on Monday, but we did not get notice. In addition, like you said, they will do all the repaving, they do all the fixing.
At
They
their
do not
cost.
provide us any information about whether they've replaced an entire line or not. So we can reach out to them and find out what the situation is on that. But that is all their responsibility.
And there's no payment. The borough doesn't pay for any of those costs.
No, and we might even get a small permit fee, but I don't think we get that on emergency repairs. I think that's only on regular repairs. Yeah.
That they will repair.
Yep, they repair everything that is caused by that.
What we need to do, that's a good question. We need to ascertain what that damage is, because I actually, there were, I think there were some residents that had damage to cars. And had, I did mention to report the damage to the police so that there would be record of it, so that they or their insurance companies could recoup the damages from PA American Water. So, we should put that out again. If there is anyone else who had sustained property damage because of that, we should do what we can to help support that it happened because of that, and so that they can recoup their damages.
And then, Mr. McCormick also mentioned about the lights.
Oh, yeah, we can, I can look into that. You go to the front hallway here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll make sure, and we want to get that painted anyway, because now that we're using it a lot more for voting and for other events. We should get that painted as well.
Is it the light in the hallway or outside when you walk out? In the stairwell itself, so it's dark when you go down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, then the light must
We
be out.
could and should look at outside lighting before November, because it will be dark before the polls close. We have that issue.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Anybody else? Yep. Seeing none, if you raise your hand up, we have somebody online. Debbie, Reagan.
You should be live, Debbie.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. I had just a few questions and comments. One, it was mentioned during the discussion about zoning that an impact study or the developers would provide the impact study or the analysis. And I find if that's correct, that would be very one-sided. Would the impacts, if new development happened, would an independent party provide that? The other question I wanted to ask was in regards to zoning, the old zone. I live on Duncan Avenue, and we're very concerned with the property, the open lots down on Maxwell. And it used to be called R2, now it's CR, the community residential. And everything has gotten a little smaller or higher. Like it used to be 500 square feet for a single family dwelling. Now it's 4,000. Distance between buildings. It used to be 20 feet. Now it's 10. How much, a minimum of side yards, 25 feet for both sides. Now it's 10, et cetera, et cetera. So when you guys do review that, please look at what R2 was to what CR is. And that the residents on Duncan and Maxwell are very concerned because, as you maybe remember, a developer tried to put in several townhouses that would have been very tight back there. That Maxwell Street is very congested, not a lot of parking. There's no sidewalks and there is a lot of foot traffic. And the current residents are on Maxwell Street are concerned about their infrastructure and just the street in general. So that's our concern, is what will be allowed to be built there. Also back to sidewalks. If new construction does happen, that will trigger the Americans with Disability Act for the sidewalks. And that is really not discussed in zoning. Maxwell Street, if you would put something back there, there needs to be sidewalks. There are none. So, but thank you. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Reagan. So she had 3 questions. One was the impact study. Would it be an independent company that would handle those impact studies for any new development? Do we know?
Yes, so things like geotechnical reports, traffic impact studies, those are all independent operators, third parties. Yeah.
And concerned about the ADA sidewalks. So if somebody did a new build, are those part of zoning or not part of the? That's part of the building code. Okay. And is the current building code requiring ADA sidewalks?
That's that international building code stuff.
Okay. Okay. And the size of lots going from R2 to CR.
Yeah, that was changed to match what is already there. And we actually made a change so that you couldn't build multifamily on those lots at the end of the street. The lots that already permit multifamily continue to permit multifamily, and there were 2, I think, of the 5, and 3 of them continue to not allow multifamily. They allow single family and duplexes. Yep.
All right. Very good. Anyone else online? Please raise your hand. Well, it's Debbie and Patty. Okay. Hearing none. It is 9:30 and meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.